The soft glow of evening light filtered through the windows of Lucio's, an upscale Italian restaurant nestled in the heart of San Francisco's North Beach neighborhood. Known for its authentic cuisine and intimate atmosphere, the restaurant had become a favorite among locals and tourists alike, though tonight it seemed unusually busy for a Wednesday. Patricia Taylor sat alone at a small corner table, her elegant posture and serene demeanor suggesting a quiet confidence that came with age and experience. At 68, she carried herself with the grace of someone who had lived a full life, her silver-streaked dark hair framing a face that, despite its softness, hinted at a remarkable strength. She wore simple but tasteful attire, a navy blue blouse paired with silver jewelry that caught the candlelight as she studied the menu. Patricia had arrived in San Francisco earlier that day for a costume design consultation with a local theater company. After decades as a successful costume designer, she had scaled back her work, only accepting projects that truly interested her. This particular production, an experimental take on Shakespeare's The Tempest, had caught her attention with its innovative approach to period costume adaptation. The consultation had gone well, and now she was treating herself to dinner before meeting her son tomorrow. Though she lived primarily in Los Angeles, these occasional trips gave her the opportunity to reconnect with him in person when his filming schedule allowed. Her son's career had taken him around the world, but he made a point of setting aside time whenever she visited, a testament to the close relationship they had maintained through years of challenges and successes. Across the restaurant, Marco Salvatore, a waiter in his late 20s with slicked back hair and an expression of perpetual impatience, was having a difficult evening. 3 tables had complained about slow service, a child had knocked over a glass of red wine onto a white tablecloth, and the kitchen was running behind on orders. Marco, who prided himself on working at one of the city's trendier establishments, found his patience wearing thin. Table 9 needs to be reset, and the woman at 14 still hasn't ordered, the hostess informed him as he passed the front desk. Marco glanced toward table 14 where Patricia sat, his eyes narrowing slightly. The old lady? She's been here 20 minutes already. She said she was waiting for the sommelier's recommendation, the hostess replied with a shrug. Marco sighed dramatically. I'll handle it. Just seat the Moretti party when they arrive. They're regulars and big tippers. With a quick adjustment of his tie, Marco approached Patricia's table, his professional smile not quite reaching his eyes. Have you decided what you'd like to order, ma'am? His tone carried a subtle edge of impatience. Patricia looked up with a warm smile. I'm still waiting for the wine recommendation I asked about. I'd prefer to pair my meal with the right wine. Marco's smile tightened. The sommelier is quite busy tonight. Perhaps I could suggest our house Chianti? It pairs with most of our menu items. I understand he's busy, Patricia replied kindly. I'm happy to wait. I'm in no rush this evening. Marco glanced at his watch, then toward the entrance where a group of well-dressed young professionals had just arrived. We have many reservations tonight, he said, his tone becoming more clipped. The kitchen will be closing for new orders in an hour. That's plenty of time, Patricia assured him, unperturbed by his growing agitation. I'll just need a few more minutes. As Marco walked away, he muttered something under his breath that made a nearby busboy raise his eyebrows. The evening continued to unfold at its busy pace, with Marco dividing his attention among his assigned tables, but notably giving preferential treatment to the younger, more fashion-conscious patrons who had been seated in his section. When Patricia finally placed her order, a simple caprese salad and the risotto ai funghi, Marco barely acknowledged her choices before rushing off to attend to a table of what appeared to be tech industry executives. Throughout the next half hour, he returned to their table repeatedly, ensuring their wine glasses remained full and their needs attended to, while Patricia's water glass sat empty. The sommelier, an older gentleman named Vincent, eventually made his way to Patricia's table with an apologetic smile. I'm so sorry for the delay, Signora. Your waiter mentioned you were interested in a wine recommendation? Yes, thank you, Patricia replied. I've ordered the mushroom risotto and was hoping for something that would complement it nicely. Vincent nodded appreciatively. An excellent choice. May I suggest our 2018 Barolo? It has earthy notes that would pair beautifully with the fungi. That sounds perfect, Patricia agreed. As Vincent departed to fetch the wine, Marco reappeared with her caprese salad, setting it down without a word before turning his attention back to the executive's table. From the entrance of the restaurant, a tall figure appeared, dressed simply in jeans, a black t-shirt, and a well-worn leather jacket. His long dark hair was pulled back in a casual half ponytail, and a few days' stubble shadowed his jaw. Despite his unassuming appearance, there was something magnetic about his presence, a quiet intensity that drew glances from several diners, though most quickly returned to their conversations, not quite placing the familiar face. Keanu Reeves had intended to surprise his mother the following day, but after wrapping his scenes earlier than expected and learning she was dining alone, he had decided to join her for dinner instead. At 46, Keanu had mastered the art of moving through public spaces without drawing attention to himself, a skill that allowed him moments of normalcy despite his fame. The hostess recognized him immediately, her professional composure momentarily slipping before she regained her poise. "Mr. Reeves, welcome to Lucio's. Are you joining someone this evening?" "Yes, my mother should be here already," he replied in his characteristic gentle tone. "Patricia Taylor?" The hostess checked her reservation book. "Of course, table 14, right this way." As they made their way through the restaurant, Keanu noticed the varied dynamics at play, the attentive service being lavished on some tables while others seemed overlooked. His observant nature had always made him sensitive to these subtle hierarchies, and it was one of the reasons he treated service workers with particular respect. When Patricia saw her son approaching, her face lit up with genuine delight. "Keanu, what a wonderful surprise!" She rose to embrace him, the warmth between them immediately evident. "Thought I'd join you for dinner instead of waiting until tomorrow," he explained as he returned her hug. "Hope that's okay." "More than okay," she assured him as they both took their seats. "It's always a gift to see you." Across the restaurant, Marco had noticed the new arrival at table 14, but hadn't recognized him from a distance. What he saw was simply another patron joining the older woman, which meant a larger order, but not necessarily a more important table in his mental hierarchy. Vincent the sommelier, however, had recognized Keanu immediately and approached their table with a respectful nod. "Mr. Reeves, it's an honor. I've just recommended the 2018 Barolo for your mother. Would you care for a glass as well?" "That would be great, thank you," Keanu replied with a small smile. "And please, call me Keanu." As Vincent departed to fetch a second glass, Marco approached the table, finally getting a clear look at the new guest. A flicker of recognition crossed his face, but in the dimmed lighting and with Keanu's casual appearance, he wasn't entirely certain. "Would you like to order, sir?" Marco asked, his tone noticeably more polite than it had been with Patricia earlier. "I'll have what my mother's having," Keanu replied, gesturing toward Patricia's salad. "The caprese looks great, and I'll follow with the risotto as well." Marco nodded, jotting down the order before departing without further comment. As he walked away, Keanu turned his attention fully to his mother. "How was your meeting with the theater company?" he asked. Patricia's eyes lit up as she described the innovative costume concepts they had discussed, her passion for her craft evident in every word. Keanu listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions that revealed how closely he had followed her career over the years. Their conversation flowed easily, touching on family news, Patricia's latest art projects, and Keanu's experiences on his current film set. Throughout their discussion, however, it became increasingly apparent that the service at their table was lacking. Patricia's water remained unfilled, their wine was slow to arrive, and Marco seemed to appear only when absolutely necessary, spending the majority of his time attending to the executive table and a group of fashionably dressed women who had been seated nearby. "I see some things never change," Patricia remarked quietly after Marco had passed their table for the third time without acknowledging that Keanu's salad had yet to arrive. "People still make judgments based on appearance and perceived importance." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. It's a good reminder of how most people experience the world. There was no bitterness in his observation, only a contemplative understanding that came from someone who had experienced both anonymity and fame. When Marco finally returned with Keanu's salad, almost 15 minutes after Patricia had finished hers, his demeanor had shifted again. Something about Keanu's appearance had finally clicked in his memory, though he still wasn't entirely confident in his recognition. "Your risotto will be out shortly," Marco informed them, his tone suddenly more attentive. "Can I get you anything else in the meantime?" "Some water would be nice," Patricia replied with the same kind smile she had maintained throughout the evening, despite the subpar service. "For both of us." "Of course, right away," Marco replied, now moving with increased efficiency. As the evening progressed, Marco's behavior began to change more noticeably. He hovered near their table, catching snippets of conversation, his expression growing increasingly alarmed as he pieced together the reality of who was sitting in his section. The moment of confirmation came when Patricia referred to her son by name while recounting a family story. Marco, who was refilling their water glasses, nearly spilled the pitcher. "Is everything all right?" Keanu asked him calmly. "Yes, sir, Mr. Reeves," Marco stammered, now fully aware of his celebrity patron. "Just a little slip. Your risotto will be ready momentarily." As Marco hurried toward the kitchen, Patricia shook her head with a small smile. "And suddenly, we exist." Fame is a strange thing, Keanu reflected. It creates a currency that shouldn't matter, but does. When their risotto arrived, delivered by Marco with newfound attention to detail, the quality of the food itself managed to overcome the uneven service. They enjoyed their meal in comfortable conversation, with Keanu sharing stories from his motorcycle adventures and Patricia updating him on his sister's recent accomplishments. Marco now appeared at their table with almost comical frequency, offering fresh pepper, more bread, additional wine, attentions that had been noticeably absent earlier in the evening. During one such visit, as Marco cleared their empty risotto plates, he addressed Keanu directly. "Mr. Reeves, it's truly an honor to serve you tonight. I'm a huge fan of your work." Keanu acknowledged the comment with a polite nod, but it was Patricia who responded. "That's very kind of you to say, though I was beginning to wonder if we were invisible earlier." Her tone remained gentle, without accusation, but the observation hung in the air between them. Marco's face flushed with embarrassment. I apologize if the service has been less than perfect. We're unusually busy tonight." "Yet the gentleman at the corner table seemed to receive plenty of attention," Patricia noted, still smiling, as did the young women near the window. Marco's discomfort was palpable as he realized that his preferential treatment of certain tables had been observed and understood for exactly what it was. "I'm truly sorry, ma'am. There's no excuse for that." Keanu watched the exchange quietly, his expression thoughtful rather than judgmental. When Marco had departed again, visibly unsettled by the interaction, Keanu leaned forward slightly. "You've always had a gift for making people reflect without making them defensive," he observed. "I learned that from you." Patricia smiled at her son with evident affection. Kindness doesn't mean absence of truth. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is hold up a mirror. Their conversation turned to dessert, and they decided to share a tiramisu. When Marco returned to take their order, there was a noticeable shift in his demeanor, not the obsequious attention he had offered upon recognizing Keanu, but something more genuine, tinged with remorse. "One tiramisu with 2 forks, he confirmed, then hesitated before adding, "Mrs. Taylor, Mr. Reeves, I want to apologize again for my behavior earlier. It was unprofessional and unkind." "Thank you for acknowledging that," Patricia replied warmly. "We all have our off days." "It wasn't just an off day," Marco admitted, his honesty surprising even himself. "I've been prioritizing tables based on what I think might tip better or be more important. I didn't realize that my mother might be someone important." Keanu finished the thought, his tone curious rather than accusatory. Marco nodded, clearly uncomfortable. "It sounds terrible when you say it out loud." "The problem isn't that you didn't recognize me or my mother's connection to me," Keanu observed quietly. "It's that you felt some people deserved better treatment than others in the first place." The simple truth of this statement seemed to land heavily with Marco. "You're right," he acknowledged. "I've been working here for 3 years, and somewhere along the way, I started categorizing people the moment they sat down. It's not who I want to be." Recognition can be a powerful catalyst for change, Patricia offered. Perhaps this evening will be meaningful for reasons beyond meeting a celebrity. Marco nodded thoughtfully. I'll get your tiramisu right away. As he walked away, Patricia and Keanu exchanged a glance that communicated volumes, the shared understanding of two people who had witnessed the complex effects of fame and status from unique perspectives. Do you think it will make a difference? Keanu asked, referring to their interaction with Marco. Hard to say, Patricia replied. Change usually happens in small increments, but sometimes a single moment of clarity can alter a person's trajectory. We plant seeds without knowing which ones will grow. Their tiramisu arrived, presented by Marco with genuine care rather than performative attentiveness. Chef Lucio prepared this himself when he heard you were here, he explained. He added extra espresso the way they make it in his hometown of Torino. Please thank him for us, Keanu replied with a genuine smile. As they enjoyed their dessert, they noticed Marco's behavior throughout the restaurant had shifted. He was now giving equal attention to all his tables, including an elderly couple who had been seated near the kitchen and a family with young children who had previously been receiving minimal service. By the time they finished their meal, the restaurant had begun to empty, the evening crowd thinning as closing time approached. When Marco brought their check, he placed it on the table with a respectful nod. Thank you both for dining with us tonight, he said, his voice carrying a sincerity that had been absent earlier. And thank you for the lesson. We're all learning as we go, Keanu replied, his characteristic kindness evident in both his words and expression. After Marco had moved to another table, Patricia watched him with thoughtful eyes. He reminds me a bit of someone I used to know, she mused. Who's that? Keanu asked as he calculated the tip, adding a generous amount that wasn't meant as a reward for recognition but as an acknowledgement of Marco's moment of growth. You, in your late 20s, Patricia replied with a soft laugh. Talented, but still figuring out what really matters. A bit too concerned with external validation. Keanu smiled at his mother's observation. I had a good teacher. As they prepared to leave, Chef Lucio himself emerged from the kitchen to greet them, his flour-dusted hands and genuine enthusiasm making it clear he was a working chef rather than merely a figurehead. Mr. Reeves, Mrs. Taylor, it has been an honor, he said, his Italian accent thick but warm. I hope everything was to your satisfaction. The food was excellent, Patricia assured him. Some of the best risotto I've had outside of Italy. You are too kind, Lucio replied, beaming with pride. Please, come again whenever you are in San Francisco. On their way out, they passed Marco, who was attending to his remaining tables with a new attentiveness that seemed to encompass all his patrons equally. Good night, Marco, Patricia said as they passed. Remember what you learned tonight. I will, Mrs. Taylor, he promised, the formality in his address now balanced with genuine respect rather than nervousness. Mr. Reeves, it was an honor to serve you both. Keanu nodded, then added, The honor is in how we treat others when we think no one important is watching. Outside, the San Francisco night had turned cool and clear, the fog having retreated temporarily to reveal a sky scattered with stars. As they waited for the valet to bring around Keanu's car, Patricia linked her arm through her son's. Not exactly the quiet dinner I had planned, she remarked with a small smile. But a good one, Keanu replied. It's been too long since we had dinner together. The company was certainly worth the uneven service, Patricia agreed. And who knows, perhaps Marco will remember this night the next time he's tempted to judge someone based on appearances. You've always seen the potential in people, Keanu observed, even when they're at their worst. Patricia squeezed his arm gently. That's how I raised you, isn't it? To look for the humanity in everyone, regardless of how they present themselves to the world. The valet arrived with Keanu's car, a modest sedan rather than the flashy sports car many might have expected. As they drove away from the restaurant, the lights of San Francisco glittering around them, Patricia reflected on the evening's events. It's strange to think how differently that might have gone if you hadn't joined me, she mused. I would have been just another invisible older woman, having a quiet meal alone. You're never just anything, Mom, Keanu replied with genuine affection, whether I'm there or not. That's sweet of you to say, she said. But we both know the world often sees people like me, older women, as background characters. It's one of the reasons I've always appreciated your films. You tend to choose stories where everyone has depth, not just the protagonists. Keanu smiled at his mother's insight. I learned that from watching you work. The way you would create elaborate backstories for every costume you designed, even for the extras who might only appear on screen for seconds. Because everyone's story matters, Patricia affirmed, even if it's not the one being told at that moment. As they continued through the city streets toward Patricia's hotel, their conversation touched on upcoming projects, family plans, and the book Patricia had been reading. The incident at the restaurant gradually receded, becoming simply one experience in a lifetime of shared moments between mother and son. When they arrived at the hotel, Keanu walked his mother to the lobby. "Breakfast tomorrow?" he suggested. "Before your flight back to LA?" "I'd love that," Patricia agreed. "There's a little cafe around the corner that makes wonderful crepes, and I promise, no more impromptu lessons in human dignity for unsuspecting waiters." Keanu laughed softly. Sometimes those are the most important lessons. He embraced his mother warmly. "Sleep well, Mom. I'll pick you up at 8. As Patricia watched her son walk back to his car, she reflected on the evening with a mixture of amusement and contemplation. The incident with Marco had been a reminder of the invisible hierarchies that shaped daily interactions, and how quickly those hierarchies could shift when celebrity entered the equation. What gave her the most satisfaction, however, wasn't the transformation in their service after Marco had recognized Keanu, but rather the moment when the young man had recognized something in himself. In that moment of self-awareness, there had been the potential for genuine change, not just in how he treated famous patrons, but in how he perceived the value and dignity of every person he served. Back inside his car, Keanu reflected on similar thoughts as he drove toward his temporary apartment. His mother had always possessed a remarkable ability to turn uncomfortable moments into opportunities for growth, both for herself and for others. It was a quality he had tried to emulate throughout his own life and career. The following morning, as promised, Keanu arrived at 8 to pick up his mother for breakfast. As they walked to the cafe, enjoying the crisp San Francisco morning, Patricia smiled at a memory. "Do you remember that diner in Toronto when you were about 17? She asked. "The one where the waitress was so rude to us because we were clearly broke, and then later she recognized you from that television movie you'd done?" Keanu laughed. "I do. She suddenly became our best friend. And you told her you preferred how she treated us before, because at least it was honest." "I was a pretty intense teenager," Keanu acknowledged with a self-deprecating smile. "You were principled," Patricia corrected. "You still are. That's why last night didn't surprise me. You've never been comfortable with the different treatment fame brings." "I've had good teachers," Keanu replied, glancing at his mother with evident affection. As they reached the cafe and were seated at a small table near the window, Patricia observed the young waitress who approached them, her genuine smile and attentive manner showing no signs of the categorization they had experienced the previous evening. "You know what I'm proud of?" Patricia said after they had placed their orders. "That despite everything, the fame, the wealth, the adulation, you've remained the same thoughtful person you were before all of that. Success hasn't changed how you see people." Keanu considered this for a moment before responding. "Maybe that's because I learned early on from you that everyone has intrinsic value that has nothing to do with their external circumstances." Patricia smiled at her son, recognizing in him the culmination of values she had worked to instill: compassion, humility, and a genuine respect for others regardless of their status or position. In a world that often confused fame with importance and wealth with worth, he had maintained a clarity about what truly mattered. "Well," she said, raising her coffee cup in a small toast, "here's to invisible older women and the unexpected lessons they sometimes deliver." Keanu touched his cup to hers, "and to the extraordinary people they raise." Their breakfast continued in comfortable conversation, the incident at Lucio's fading into the background of their shared history. One small moment in a lifetime of experiences that had shaped them both. But somewhere across the city, A young waiter named Marco began his morning shift with a slightly altered perspective, treating his first elderly patron of the day with a newfound attentiveness, born from the simple recognition that every person deserves to be seen, regardless of who might be watching.